Yeah, hello and welcome to this video, which is the final one for the World Chess Championships 2016 between Magnus Carlsen, the defending champion, and challenger Sergei Karjakin. The final video, it is for sure because it's about the tiebreaks. And after this day of rapid and possibly blitz chess, it's clear who's winning the match. So let's get right into it. I'm covering a couple of games in this video, and in order to not make it like extremely long, I'm going to focus on the most important moments and key situations. In the very first game, and we have a rapid time control of 25 minutes per player plus a 10-second increment. In the first game, the challenger had white, so we're going to start right away. And this is one of the games that I'm not covering in much detail, but let's see what happens. I want to show still some key points. We have this line again, the 6d3 Rui. This has been the main battleground in Karjakin's whites games, and to be perfectly honest, I don't get it. I just don't get it. How can you repeat this line like for the, I don't know, 5th time or something? I didn't look it up. Never get anything, and in some games actually be worse. I mean, Carlsen has outplayed him from that in game, what was that? Game 4? Well, that was actually a different line, but it was a very similar structure. So I simply don't get why in a situation where you should finally start to win a game, why not do something a little bit different? Yeah, I mean, he can play one knight f3 or c4 or whatnot. Yeah, why must it be the same line every time, not getting anywhere, and where obviously Team Carlsen has new ideas every game? So we will see this here again as Carlsen plays knight b8. This is not a bad move at all, but it is a relatively rare move, and it is new for the match. In former games, Carlsen had played knight a5 and bishop e6 and equalized with both of them. Yeah, now this time knight b8, and this apparently also equalizes. So, sorry, I don't get it. Why repeat the lame opening all over again and never get anywhere? So, we see that a couple of moves later, Black has expanded on the queen side, and also note, yeah, that Carlsen is much ahead on the clock. So he's bringing new ideas every game and doesn't have to use time. So, sorry, I don't get the preparation here. Why repeat something that obviously doesn't net anything all over again? Speaking about the position, yeah, Black has gained some space on the queen side and has developed all his pieces. I think the position should be roughly equal. There are some interesting points though. White has just played bishop to c4. And an important thing to note is that it is never a good idea for Black to take on c4 and give White those double pawns. This is something that is often misunderstood. Double pawns can be weaknesses, but they don't have to be weaknesses all of the time. Here, for example, White is very happy with this configuration where the c3 pawn covers very important squares. I mean, this would be cooperative, but let's just do this also. Yeah, here we see that those pawns are symmetrical, but the c3 pawn is a huge difference. It covers those two weak squares, or they would be weak if the pawn is not on c3. On the Black side, however, b5 and d5 are weak. Yeah, so here White could try. I mean, it's not easy to accomplish, or it would take a long time, but White could try to, let's say, put knights on those squares, while Black cannot do the same. So this is an important thing to consider. Double pawns often cover important squares. Here they are not weak at all, as they cannot be attacked. I mean, how should Black ever attack those pawns? Yeah, this could happen in, I don't know, deep in a rook ending, where White somehow has blundered control of the b file. Sounds very unlikely. So Black does not want to take there. They both centralize a bit more pieces, and here Black maybe tries to play d5. Karjakin decided to trade, and now Carlsen played f takes e6, a move that was a bit surprising to me and also to the commentators. But it seems perfectly okay once you look at the game. It looked a little bit like he had prepared this recapture. I don't know, maybe he did not like the prospect of white playing c4, where he shuts down the whole game. Like on this area of the board, everything now is shut down. While white might be easier, it might be easier for white to prepare something on the king side. It is probably roughly equal still, but maybe he disliked that. This move is fine, however. There's nothing wrong with it. We now get some trades, and black activates with rook b4. This is the absolute key idea. The rook jumps to this square, looking at the pawn, and more importantly, the a4 pawn. And in fact, there is not much else there than to trade this off. And now we get something that is very well known. If we have 4 pawns or identical pawn count on one flank, like here it's on the king side, or okay, this is not technically the king side, but yeah, we have 2 pawn masses that are directly opposed. There's no passer anywhere. It's very difficult to get to something concrete. Black is just extremely solid here, even though he has a slightly weaker pawn structure with the f-pawn missing. They continued a couple of more moves, but there's simply not much going on. Yeah, here they agreed to a draw. So not a very exciting game, but still I find it remarkable that Karjakin is repeating the same completely unpromising line all over again. I understand that there's nothing particularly great that white can do. White has problems proving advantages in any opening where black plays a good main line, but why hit the same spot every time where you get nowhere? Yeah. Okay, anyway, let's see what happened in game 2, which was a lot more interesting. We get the Italian this time. I mean, Carlsen is playing e4 as well, but he at least varied a little bit. Yeah, he tried 2 d4s, he tried the Italian ones. Okay. In this game, we have a repeat of a couple of moves from game, I don't know, did I make a note what game that was? Game 5. Yeah, we are identical up to this point. And b4 was played in the 5th game. Really? Not sure about the count. I think game 5. This time Carlsen plays rook e1, bishop to a7, h3. All this is very, very standard. And black gets the knight over to g6. I have to say that I usually have these kind of positions with the black pieces, and I always, like from back in the days when I started to play e4, e5 as black, which is like roughly 10, 11 years ago, I never considered this to be particularly threatening. I always thought, okay, the Italian with c3, that's extremely lame. Black has no problems. Yeah, I put the knight like here on g6, I play c6, but I have to say that having now a bit more experience with the position type, I tend to feel that white sometimes has a little something. He's a little bit better coordinated, and somehow even, I mean, the knight is clearly not great on c6 if we go back, as it looks at all those controlled squares. So rerouting it definitely makes some sense. On the other hand, sometimes I feel on g6 it's also not doing that much, and we will see a situation a couple of moves later if we just fast forward a little bit. Yeah, if we go to this position, here we see that somehow white is much better equipped to do something on the queen side. The knight on c4 makes a much stronger impression than this knight. I mean, if we look at the pawns are completely symmetrical. Okay, we have h3 played, but that's not a big difference. If black plays h6 or not doesn't really matter that much. It's a little difference, but it's not a big thing. But if we compare, white has the knight on c4 against the knight on g6, and this is a little bit annoying for black. Yeah, white somehow is the more active part here, looking at those 2 pawns on e5 and a5. So I don't think that black has equalized completely here, even though you would think that not much happens, and it should not really be a big issue for black. But as we see, it's not easy to handle. Yeah, Karjakin played queen to c7, and now Carlsen with b4. Yeah, he can play this kind of advance here, and black, for black it's more difficult to do so. It's funny that, I mean, Karjakin now played the obvious looking move captures on b4. It's funny that computers actually want to ignore the capture. Yeah, my Stockfish suggests something like h6 here in this position, and just claims that this should be fine. But this is such an outlandish idea that's never going to be played in a human game, especially with a quite limited time control like rapid. Yeah, the one idea is to play c4, and white cannot take. Yeah, it's really a little bit strange. The engine gives moves like this and then wants to play c4. Knight d2. It's very strange. The normal move is to capture, and this is what Karjakin did. And now he played b5, trying to solve his problems by tactical means. Yeah, why problems? Is that really a problematic position for black? I mean, it's not something huge, but, well, what is he supposed to do? Let's say he plays some slow move. Let's say rook e8 or something. Okay, here actually bishop b2 is a bit annoying. Yeah, but we can show that, like this, and then a5. This kind of structure. Knight g5 also is an interesting move. But this structure, if white gets in a5, this is annoying. If you play b6, then your c6 pawn will be very weak, and a move like c5 is downright catastrophic. After b5, wow, yeah, white wins probably. So white wants to establish this bind with a5, and it's not easy, really not easy. He played b5, but that also does not seem to equalize. Carlsen just dropped back to e3, and now the question is what to do with this pawn on b5. It's really not easy, really not easy. I mean, it's a pin there on the c file, so white just threatens to win this for good. Yeah, what is he supposed to play? Again, computers give some outlandish lines. Yeah, queen e7 trying to take b4, giving the exchange. But even that, I mean, I have this line somewhere in my notes. Let me check. Yeah, I don't want to like just quote computer lines, but this is a funny one. Queen e7, and a5, and now black actually has to take if he allows white this a pawn, which is another strategic threat that white has. Yeah, then he's just worse. So takes, and then something like this is what the computer gives. But white here has the better chances, and he will win the exchange and keep the a pawn. The computer line is actually really funny. It gives something like this: bishop f8, rook f8, queen takes, and now e4 is answered with the extremely funny move g3, counter-attacking. Queen takes, bishop e2, and the queen doesn't have squares. Knight e5 takes, and again the queen doesn't have squares, but black can save himself with this funny move. But after bishop, queen h5 and a6, white is better. Yeah, it's a completely crazy line, but also not really giving black full equality. Karjakin decided to take on a4 after long think, after which he is settled with that weak pawn. And the problem is it's very difficult to get rid of it, because every c5 move, yeah, let's say c5 immediately, is almost always going to be answered by b5. And this is a very bad structure for black. That pawn is much more dangerous than the c pawn, because white here has very easy ideas. Bishop c4, knight g5. He can use his pieces much better on the queen side than black can use his pieces, especially the g6 knight. The g6 knight doesn't do anything. If this would sit somewhere on the queen side to defend, it's a different story. But here white just opens the position favorably on the side of the board where he has more pieces. Yeah, Karjakin now took on e3. That's not easy. I mean, he did this relatively quickly, but the decision probably was made a bit earlier. And yeah, he's under heavy pressure, and he's got about a time disadvantage of 10 minutes. Yeah, Carlsen recaptured with the bishop. This is stronger than rook takes. Rook takes isn't actually bad. The idea is that after the trade here, the rook actually covers this. But what I think what he played is just much more dynamic. Like this. He gave up that pawn and now played rook c1. It's very strong. This pawn is attacked, and black has no really great way to cover it. We should note that white is also threatening the move b5, which is a discovery on this knight. So let's say black would play a move like that, like knight e7. I think what did he do? Bishop d5, right? Let me check. Yeah, bishop d5. A move like that is answered with b5. And this is an attack on the knight. After the knight gets covered, white can actually push to b6. And this position is bad for black. There's absolutely no way around that. The b pawn is extremely strong. And if you are in a game with very limited time and you see a line like that, you almost certainly know that you are worse, probably much worse, and potentially you're losing. I mean, this is really possible. So it's not a line that you would like to play. He decided to play bishop d5, preparing a complete transformation of the position after b5. And this is a quite typical way of defending that Karjakin used a lot in this match. He's essentially trying to defend this in a fortress style. How does that happen? Yeah, he now decided to capture on b5, get rid of the b pawn. So there's no b pawn promoting now anymore. We are reduced in terms of pawns on the king side. Okay, all kinds of things are hanging. The key point is that white now has the move queen takes e4, which was played by Carlsen. The queen gets a desperado here on e4. And now we see that with this attack there, black has to take on c1 and white takes on d5. So what do we have? Yeah, queen has to move. Like let's take stock here. That is what Karjakin aimed for when he played the move bishop d5. Now we are reduced to the king side. And this is a typical way of building a fortress. You try to reduce the play to one side of the board and just try to build up something that the other side is not able to break down. However, white is clearly better in this position. He has got three minor pieces, two bishops against a rook and pawn. So he is much better here. And we cannot say he's winning, but it's a very, very substantial advantage. The reason is quite often that the number of pieces, the piece count, is very important because you can build up combined threats of those pieces, for example, against the black king or against pawn weaknesses that you have to attack or that are being created. We see after a couple of attacks here on the white queen, Carlsen managed to put the queen on e4 and activates this position now. The move h4 instead of g3 also was interesting, but I think we cannot really fault him for any decision here. Everything is good now. Yeah, here he played the move bishop e4. A bit surprising because after queen e6 the white queen is running a little bit short of squares. There were interesting alternatives here. He could still play the move knight h4, for example. That was an interesting try. After which black probably has to go back. If he takes, queen h7 seems to be far too dangerous, but knight f8 is playable. Yeah, well, he played this move, queen e6, and now queen h5. The thing is, after the queen trade, it is not clear if white can win. He is certainly able to try forever, but a win, like a mathematical win, prove it, difficult. Queen h5. We have to note that Carlsen had roughly here 8 minutes, I think this is roughly correct, against Karjakin, who was a little bit later getting down to the increment. So Carlsen has a much better position and a much better time. Knight e7 now by Karjakin. And now a surprising decision by Carlsen. He did not go for, he did not continue, let's say, with all the pieces on the board, which was possible. An interesting move that is suggested by computers is knight g5. Certainly a move that he checked. However, there are some quite outlandish ideas here again, which seem okay for a computer, but for a human player, not easy. First of all, black cannot take this. This is
check.
Easy to see.
Check. Check.
Yeah, and here we see that two bishops can be pretty strong. Here, basically everything get lost. Like this is
check.
Way to win easily for white. This is not the problem line. The line that is difficult is this one. If black moves the queen away, he has to keep f7 protected. Yeah, and now the engines give a line
check.
like that. Check, king f8, and now knight to e4. And these are lines that are difficult to play for a human player. I mean, they are obviously quite attractive looking, but this is not very harmonious. The bishop on h7. We should note that there are some funny tactics in this position. For example, white is actually threatening, or yeah, it depends on black's move now, of course. But something like queen takes h6, pawn takes, bishop takes would actually be mate. Yeah, if we just for fun, yeah, this would be a funny
checkmate.
Funny checkmate. Yeah, it's dangerous, but it's not so easy to assess. Still, it was surprising to see that Carlsen opted for queen takes e5. He also could have played other moves. Yeah, well, okay, he took this, and now knight g6. And again, we see that this is a good defense by Karjakin. We have those pieces lined up now on the e-file, so this is forced. And now we have an ending, two bishops against a single rook. I did not have the time to look up if that has been analyzed in some depth. My gut feeling was that this should be a draw, which was supported by some grandmasters during the game. I'm not sure if Swidler and Gustafsson also believed it could be a draw, but there were also some tweets. I think it's not unreasonable to assume that it should be a draw. It's not easy for white to really make some progress. However, let's go ahead a little bit.
Check.
We have to note that Karjakin was living on the increment, basically. We fast forward a little bit, and we see that Carlsen has made some progress. Yeah, he has managed to activate his king and enter on the king side. And in fact, we will come to a situation where he has given up this pawn.
Check.
Yeah, black could not go the other way.
Check.
Would drop this pawn. Yeah, and now we see black's king now is in some danger. He's on h8, or it is on h8, and something like this actually is mate. That is one winning idea that white has. And here, after bishop d6 that was played, rook e2, we come to a critical moment. Carlsen still has some time. I'm not sure if 4 minutes are correct, but he had substantial time, 3 minutes, something like that. And surprisingly, he did not find the winning line now. This is, I think, really surprising, because it is not that difficult to do. White now wins with king f7, and the idea is to play for mate. So how can black possibly defend? The only possible defense here is to check on the 7th rank. So like rook c2 is the most challenging line. And now the difficult thing is to see the move g4. I mean, this actually after rook c7, check, king here, and then f5 is not that clear, because after king takes, white has won a pawn, but it is not clear that we have actually gained all that much. The key thing is that white in this position has the time to play g4, because black has no useful move. If he plays after g4 some sort of non-move, then white is going in for the kill. Bishop f8,
Check.
And now the move f5 can be answered with g takes. And here black has no defense against bishop f7 and bishop g7 mate. For example, h5, f6 takes bishop f7. And this is funny, right? Bishop g7 mate. So this is a win for white. Note that it's a very close call here. Yeah, we have a dark squared corner here, and it's a dark squared bishop. This will be relevant later. So this was actually winning for white. But Carlsen did not see that. Surprisingly, I think it's not, for a player of that level, it's not that difficult to do. He played bishop g4 back. And now this whole thing, this entering with the king giving up the f-pawn didn't net all that much. Now the position objectively is a draw. However, it's still not easy to do for black, I mean, yeah, to defend. We can again fast forward a little bit, a couple of moves.
Check.
And we have, I think, here almost king g8, bishop here. Yeah, and here Karjakin should play rook c6, king h8, one of those moves. But yeah, being low on time, now they both didn't have much time. I think here the clocks are actually not correct. I think they had less time. He played the move rook b7. And again, in this position, Carlsen can win. But he didn't have much time, and he can win with the same thing, actually, that we have seen earlier. Here, black is completely powerless against bishop f7 and bishop g7 mate. And again, that was not played. Even with like 30 seconds or so. I mean, those players are so good. Okay, it didn't happen. Bishop d6. Yeah, a little bit of back and forth.
Check.
Yeah, and now you don't really make any progress unless you do this. And here Karjakin found, with limited time, a drawing idea. h5. What is the point? Yeah, it's a really strong move. White now should probably take a move like g5. I mean, this also has no winning ideas, and this pawn might even prove dangerous. So g takes, and how does he draw now? Yeah, he draws with f5, dropping this pawn, and now taking. Yeah, and it's a fortress. Yeah, he's the man with the fortresses. What is black doing here? Exactly nothing. He just shuffles back and forth, and white has no way forward. The reason is he has two h-pawns, and those are useless with a light squared bishop. They played a couple of more moves, but there is nothing to do. Here, after g5, the draw was agreed.
Stalemate.
Yeah, okay. It was still taken, the en passant. Yeah, it is always a draw, yeah?
Stalemate.
Yeah, and you cannot, I mean, you simply cannot win with an h-pawn is the problem. Yeah? Whatever you do, you will always, like here, yeah, you can go back, snatch this pawn. It's just a draw. It's the wrong colored bishop. So an extremely narrow escape here by the challenger. Carlsen had two clearly winning continuations in this ending, and he had an extremely good middle game. Yeah, middle game is wrong, but when the queens were still on the board, I mean, it was an attacking position with big attacking chances. So Carlsen had a huge time advantage, a huge advantage on the board, still did not win the game. So heavy blow, I think, for the world champion, not taking the lead there. So we went into game 3 with Karjakin having white, and it's no surprise he played the same line again. Yeah. So again, you can maybe what was it called? Fast forward, no, fast backward or something. Go back to what I said with game 1. I think actually if he plays this against Carlsen 50 games, he won't win a single one. Yeah, I mean maybe one or so, because sometimes black falls asleep or something. But I don't see the point. Why no variety anyway? So Carlsen actually plays again a new idea. They have like obviously a ton of ideas against this, and bishop e6. we had seen actually. And now b4 played by Karjakin. Knight c6, knight d5, knight d4. It's a little bit comparable to what we had in game 11 actually in terms of ideas, but there are some differences, b4 and bishop a2. Okay, let's get right to the action. Karjakin now actually plays a sharp move, knight g5. This is one of the very few decisions in his match where we can say that he played the most principled active move. He quite often didn't do that, and I think this is a real flaw. If you challenge for the world title and play as safely as he does, I don't know. I think you should be more aggressive. Anyway, knight g5. That's an interesting move. The bishop is now under attack on e6, and Carlsen took this, and he played the opening still relatively quickly. Takes, knight to d7. Knight e4. And we have to be aware that the knight on d4 is an absolute key piece here. It has very little squares actually. If black now is not playing in the way he does, then black will end up in a bad position. Carlsen plays f5 very aggressively, and he has to basically. If he plays something lame, I don't know, let's play some lame move, and the knight is being kicked back to f5, that really didn't make any sense. The knight now here has simply a bad square and nowhere to go to, and white should be better in this position. He's got the two bishops. Currently this bishop is not looking great, but it can be improved. For example, it can be sometimes put on this diagonal and then d4 can happen. Here black is just worse, so we have to go f5, perfectly knowing that now the knight has no square at all. So f5 basically commits you to play f4. And this is a very highly committal kind of decision. Yeah, black pushing forward like that. I'm absolutely skeptical about the clock times here, by the way, that I displayed. I think Carlsen did not spend that much time. Okay. So he pushed the f pawn forward. This is very committal. Black is gaining space on the king side, but gives away, in a way, I mean, gives away, he never had the control. But now these squares here are firmly in white's control, especially e4. Very committal, but also ambitious. This is what I'm talking about. You have to, at one point, like, yeah, just grab the initiative and try something. And this is what he's doing here. He's playing very enterprisingly here with the f pawn push. So c3, knight f5, knight to e4, centralizing the knight. Yeah, queen to e8, and we have now some idea what black is up to. Yeah, like this for example can be an attacking scheme, or on a very good day you can actually even push the pawns, but that must be a very good day. So it's more about a piece-based attack on the king side. The next decision by Karjakin was not this one actually. That makes some sense. Yeah, get the bishop around, maybe prepare a4, prepare rook a2, queen g6. The next decision was met with some criticism from Peter Swidler, who didn't like it. He advocated king h1 here to have rook g1 in case of an attack, and he didn't like the move f3 at all, which shows. I mean, I was kind of thinking, not great to do that, but he was highly critical and said, okay, you know, this weakens e3 long term, and you simply don't want to give this piece a square. And he showed, I mean, he's a great player. He showed very good insight there, as we will see that this in fact will become an issue later. Bishop h4. This bishop didn't do much on e7, and on h4 it actually has some active ideas. A typical attacking idea, for example, can be to simply put it on g3. So I just make some random moves now to show the idea. It doesn't really work, yeah, but I just want to show it. This pawn then will be the base for queen h2 mate, and with proper preparation this can be quite dangerous. An attacking idea that is well known from openings like the King's Indian or sometimes even the Sveshnikov. So what happened here? A4. White needs some play on the queen side. Knight f6. This knight is also coming towards the king side. And queen to e2. Yeah, we have roughly equal clock times now. Yeah, and now I think a very good decision by Carlsen. If we look at this position in terms of board areas, yeah, like if you look at this area of the board, basically the king side, black looks to be far more active. The only danger that might come to him, to black, is something on the queen side, where those pawns look somewhat vulnerable. For example, if this position would be slightly different and black would have, let's say, the pawn back on b7, then I think it would be quite clear that black is for choice, because the play on the king side will be dangerous. I mean, he has lots of pieces around, and white has no clear counterplay. With the pawn back on b7, I think black would be fine. I mean, very, very fine, better. So the queen side is the danger, that there's something happening here. So he plays a5, very nice, trying to just get rid of all the pawns here. So that in a way, like, okay, let's make sure that nothing happens there, and then we can look to play on the king side. Not easy to react to this. It's a very, very tough decision now, because this pawn tension, there are simply many options for white. It's difficult to say, but maybe the next choice by Karjakin wasn't the best. He took on b5. Maybe it was better to take on a5. I mean, a difference here, or I mean, one thing is that it looks a little awkward because of the pin, but ultimately, after a move like rook a2, and this gets traded, this position should be roughly equal still. The difference to the game is, if we look at this, ab5, ab4, now the c pawn will be moving. It has to react to the b pawn in some way, and then there are actually more weaknesses on the queen side. Yeah, bishop d2, takes, and now we see that those pawns are not particularly active. Yeah, it's not a good structure. Not like they would like fall one by one, but it is it is quite vulnerable. So Carlsen played knight e3. This is what Swidler had said all along a couple of moves ago. This square can prove to be a long-term liability. Rook c1. Carlsen traded here, and now played queen to e8. Yeah, asking white about this now isolated pawn. Yeah, white covered it. And king h8. This is a good move. Yeah, king h8, getting out of this diagonal. Shouldn't be underestimated. If black, for example, instead of queen e8, would play some, yeah, but not quite sure what to play. Let's play this kind of thing. You have to reckon with ideas of bishop takes e5. Like
check.
This kind of thing can prove to be extremely dangerous. I mean, here queen b6 does probably work, but this is an idea. So it's a good idea to put the king back. Queen e8 was also covering those ideas. So knight f6 now by Karjakin, and I think this is a mistake which was not used by Carlsen. He quite surprisingly took with the bishop quickly. It seems that g takes was very strong for black. Yeah, you have rook g8 coming, and this attack can be very, very dangerous to meet. Yeah, note that the knight is extremely strong. He did not take it with the g pawn, surprisingly. You can look at lines here like what did I do? For example, king h1, something like this, which looks normal. Yeah. This, for example, is already winning. Yeah, queen h5, and then you have this check. Note that those bishops are extremely bad pieces. They absolutely don't help at all. So that was a strong idea, but wasn't played. He took with the bishop. Rook a3 by Karjakin, trying to maybe infiltrate on the a file. And now, yeah, a great move by the world champion. You can play like basically everything here with black and be okay. But what he did is a very instructive move. he played the move e4, taking into account that the bishop was a relatively passive piece. And now we have a fourth line where this bishop gets traded, because white really doesn't have any big... he cannot avoid the bishop trade. Yeah, he took with this pawn, takes, and now this. So he has given up a pawn. With this, he got rid of the dark squared bishops. That means that the dark squares are now much weaker in white's camp, and the knight now is not going to be challenged by a bishop again. So the knight is just sitting there, always near white's king, attacking g2 and being a total nuisance. Plus, in the current situation, the a file will be a possible way to infiltrate. That was a really nice move, e4. Objectively, white might not be in that bad shape. The computer is insisting that this is an equal position. But in a practical game, this position is terrible. Absolutely terrible for white. And it's no big surprise that Karjakin has big problems here. He has like 2 minutes on the clock. And with 2 minutes on the clock, this is hell. Yeah. The knight is just a much more dangerous piece with just with little time on the clock, and here it is also objectively stronger, and the white bishop is just a dummy piece. Yeah, h3. This is probably not the best. Queen d2 was suggested by Svidler in the broadcast, and I tend to agree. That looks like a very natural move to patch up some dark squares. Still, black has all the options here, and we have to see he's running almost zero risk here. He's a pawn down, but how are you ever going to lose this position unless you blunder rook c7 or something like that? Yeah, it's not imaginable that white can get anything active done. But he played h3, h6. This is necessary in the long run, I guess. Additional king safety, king h2, the kind of move that you play if you have no time. King h2, king h2, queen d4, queen e1, queen b2. This is getting critical now. The funny thing is, like here he played bishop f1. Computers insist that bishop e2 is the right defense, but here you can see why a computer evaluation sometimes means nothing. Because in a practical game, nobody is going to play that. I'm showing you this computer line because it is extremely funny. Bishop e2, rook a2, and this is actually the moment where the human player basically stops. I mean, maybe you calculate one or two moves further, but this is only, this only applies to people who are really, really strong. Okay, this is attacked. If you move the bishop, you're going to get killed with this. So are you just losing the piece? No, you actually have an idea, e5. That's a really funny one. The idea is that after pawn takes, first of all, if black takes on e2 here, then there's a breakthrough. Yeah, here white would actually be able to promote his pawn for a draw probably, but this is good enough. So let's say the pawn takes this, and white goes d6, just insisting on this breakthrough. Okay, takes.
Check. Check.
Check. Yeah, and now, e4.
Check.
g6.
Check.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that here, you think that black might escape, but white has the amazing resource rook c2, which draws. So, nobody is calculating like that. Especially, this is a 7-move deep line. In a rapid game, it's totally unrealistic. Even if you have time on the clock, you never find this. This is a draw. A perpetual. Yeah, okay, he played bishop f1. And it seems that after bishop f1, the position is objectively losing. Rook a2. He could have defended better now. He played rook c7 with a... he had no... This is wrong. He didn't have 2 minutes. He had seconds. Yeah. He played rook c7, which loses immediately. But it's extremely difficult to defend this. something like a rook b1, black will go to f6 or to e5 and continue to press here. I think it's very unlikely that this should hold in the long run. I mean, computers, a supercomputer, I think, gave a win here in this position, but I don't know those precise lines. Yeah, he played this, and after rook a1, Karjakin had to resign. He loses this bishop with a check. And yeah, a mate is not far off. I think it is actually a mate in something. So that was obviously an extremely important point for the world champion, winning here with black, giving him the 2-1 lead in this 4-game mini match. So that meant in the final game he had the white pieces and just needed a draw, which sounds very doable, but it's something that still has to be done under the circumstances. So e4 is played, no surprise. That's the best shot for playing for a draw. There are so many forced lines that you can use to draw. Karjakin is going for this, not e5 anymore, but probably aiming for either Najdorf or a classical Sicilian. Maybe a classical, because here what I'm talking about is here in the Najdorf there are actually tons of ways for white to force draws, not like completely forcing ones, but you can play lines like with bishop g5, where there are many situations where white can cop out with a draw, and this is what Carlsen wants in this position. Maybe he would have gone here. We don't know, because Carlsen played the move f3. This is an interesting sideline, and something that I think could be worth checking out if you want to have a kind of a little surprise weapon handy that is not much work. In some cases, it transposes to other position types now. For example, if black plays, let's say g6, you have a choice. You can go for a Maroczy bind style of position, or you can transpose to the dragon, just the mainline dragon. If black plays e6, then white can go with c4, again in a Maroczy style, or can also think about this and go for an English attack setup, which black already has committed to e6. So some interesting points. Karjakin played e5, which is the main move, I guess. Knight b3, bishop e7, and c4. White just stops any d65. a5 and a4 played here by the challenger. To be honest, I'm not completely sure how black should play this position. I mean, I did not make a full theoretical exploration of it. What I know is that I think that black's position pretty much sucked in a couple of moves, but I don't really know what the wrong idea was. I mean, this in my mind doesn't look all that bad. Black tried to fight for some dark squares, but somehow he does not. It seems that he is not able to prevent the move b4 in the long run, and if that happens, you're simply not in good shape. Maybe knight a6 was questionable. That was also questioned in the broadcast, but oops, my notes are dropping. It was also mentioned in the broadcast that they had some doubts about it, but yeah, it's tough to say. What I know is that this position is good for white. Yeah, white is able to play b4 quite quickly, and yeah, it's no fun. One thing, by the way, that should be mentioned, that is that this move here, no, it's not here. There was a funny line. Let me check if I can reconstruct that. I think it was here. I didn't put that in the notes. Here, b4. That's a funny idea. Here the black queen gets trapped. They had this in the broadcast. It's a funny line, right? So a3 here was, I mean, that isn't even good strategically, but it is completely punished by b4. Yeah, okay, so in the game, white got to play b4, and this position is very comfortable. It's just very comfortable. Black had to take. Now both knight takes and pawn takes are good. Carlsen took with the pawn and queen to d8. Yeah, knight d3 and knight e6, and the knight wanders with its long route over to d5. So what we have here is a structure that in principle is quite well known in the Sicilian from the Najdorf and some others. The problem here for black is he has too much, he has too many weaknesses. The missing a pawns, they give white also the b5 square, and black does not really have a very clear idea what his counterplay might look like. He cannot play f5 in this position, he cannot play b5. So I think Karjakin with his, he had to play something non-symmetrical, something to instill some life into the position. He drifted into a bad position while doing that. Bishop c6, and now black tried to push the h-pawn, trying for some play, but Carlsen simply attacked this pawn and now played g3 to activate his bishop. That was not the only plan, but it made perfect sense. The bishop on f1 is not a very good piece. Why not activate it? Okay, rook a3, probably not the best choice, but it is difficult to give black some advice. He doubled on the a file, and now Carlsen just attacked the rook, and here threatened b4. That's a very clever decision. Yeah, knight c2 back, because the best move for black is actually rook to a6, but this is a repetition, so Karjakin cannot do that. We have to say that here Carlsen obviously will repeat because that gives him the World Championship title, but white is of course just clearly better if he plays any other move, like whatever. Yeah, his strategic advantage is huge, but he would of course take the draw because of the general sporting consideration. Yeah, but Karjakin cannot allow a draw. He played b6. This is a pretty bad move objectively, and he knew that it is not a good move, but it is the only move to continue. It is bad because it weakens even more the whole queen side. Yeah, he drifted into huge time issues. But okay, it's difficult. Yeah, you're sitting in a bad position, you need to win, and you have no active ideas. So Carlsen just took this pawn and this knight. This was a somewhat controversial decision, at least in the broadcast, because Jan Gustafsson didn't like this for white, because he felt like he opens up the king position and gives black maybe some ideas, while Peter Svidler thought that white should just be clearly better here, and that was fine. Svidler is right, I think, objectively speaking, but what I know is that I would be slightly puzzled still with white, or concerned is the right word, puzzled is wrong, concerned that something might happen. A key problem though for black is that this bishop is not good, and it's not easily activated. Yeah, rook a3, attacking the pawn, and now after this, yeah, black pretty much has to do what he did. He gave away the exchange now with rook takes b3, but you're not going anywhere with a move like that. Yeah, white just, let's say, secures the king, and what's going on here? Black is a pawn down, it has no compensation here. Can try to activate, but white's position is very, very controlled. Yeah, the knight here is putting pressure, it can be rerouted, so that should be reasonably easy to handle. So rook b3, knight d4, and now we have this situation where black is an exchange down for a pawn, and he has this hope that this bishop will activate. But the position now is reasonably easy for Carlsen to play. The pawn went up to h5, which is good, preventing any g6 and preventing anything like that. With the rook coming to d5 later, it is a very good control that he has. Yeah, they both didn't have much time. Karjakin was down to, yeah, I think less than 50 seconds, Carlsen like on 2 minutes. We come to an interesting situation a little bit later. Yeah, he could have taken on f4, by the way, but this is a good safe move. Takes it.
Check.
Check. And now, that's very nice now. Yeah, black now played queen to f2. And Carlsen now decides. He took a moment there to calculate. And we have to be perfectly aware that in this position, if white just plays the move, let's say queen g3, he wins this in the long run. Black is not mating here. Yeah, something like this, rook g1, white will win. I mean, technically win. But he took a moment and played rook c8 check. And with rook c8 check, he saw the coming things. Rook c8 check. Black now only has two legal moves that make sense: king h7 or bishop f8. After bishop f8,
check.
White takes. Oops.
Check.
And now crashes through. This
check.
Is a checkmate. It's
check.
It's not rocket science, you know, but you have to do this. Yeah,
check.
It's the decisive game in a World Championship match, and if you are somewhat wrong here,
check. Checkmate.
This is the mate. If you're somewhat wrong, you are going to get checkmated. Yeah, black has a ton of threats, so you have to be completely sure that this kind of line does work. Karjakin did not do that. He played king h7, and now we come to the final move of this World Championship match, and this, I think, it is the most beautiful finish of a World Championship match to date. It is. I mean, if we just like final move of a match, not the best move ever played in a match, but the final move of a match, this is the most beautiful one, I think. If you think otherwise and have some, I forgot something, yeah, please, I'm happy to learn about that in the comment section. Yeah, Carlsen now played the extremely beautiful move queen h6 for a queen sacrifice, and yeah, it's extremely nice to see. And if the king takes, we have rook
checkmate.
h8, checkmate, and the only other legal move is the pawn capture,
checkmate,
which gives the second checkmate. Yeah, so it's very nice. I mean, it's not extremely difficult or anything, but it's extremely aesthetic, and it's great that he saw it, yeah, in this very limited time and went for it, and not for some prosaic win. This is really beautiful. So Carlsen wins this tiebreaker 3-1, winning game 3 and game 4, and retains his title. If we look at the games in this tiebreak, I think that was an extremely deserved victory. If you look at the tiebreak alone, I mean, Carlsen already had a completely winning position in game 2 after yeah, pretty much outplaying Karjakin for most of the game, but then he failed to convert, which we have seen in the match as well. But then he came back in game 3, when certainly if you are a fan of the world champion, you could have some doubts. Yeah, again, he has spoiled a winning position. Will he be able to focus, or will he, I don't know, steam and do something wacky and lose even? No, he played a great game in game 3 and won convincingly with the black pieces. Yeah, and this set the stage for this final game, which really has to be seen in that context. I mean, if you just look at this game and wonder what did black do here, then you would say, okay, black played extremely badly. The thing is, he had to win, and you have to take some kind of non-symmetrical approach, and it simply didn't work out. I think f3 was a clever choice. So this game has to be really put in context. But a 3-1 result is not unreasonable at all. Carlsen had 2 games where he outplayed Karjakin and was missing a win narrowly. The other one he did win, and then he won game 4. So it was a very clean victory in this tiebreaker. Seeing this performance here, you kind of understand the strategy a little bit better to simply give away game 12 for a draw. He said in the press conference that they had yeah, they decided on this strategy and started the preparation for the tiebreaker the day before game 12. So basically being confident that Carlsen will make a draw at will with some line, and they only focused on the tiebreak. while Team Karjakin had to also do something for game 12, yeah, in case of Carlsen tries something in this regard. So this this very lame game 12, which caused many understandable negative reaction, probably the strategy paid off in some way. What to say about the overall match? It certainly wasn't the best match ever. Some people wrote, yeah, it was the worst match ever. This is also certainly not true. I think it was a pairing, let's say, a matchup of two players. Let's do this position instead. Of two players that are somewhat similar in style, and with the extremely good preparation, this basically meant that we would have a pretty high draw rate. What I felt I was somewhat disappointed with is that Karjakin did not really make any pressure with white. Yeah? I mean, he played the same lame Ruy Lopez's all over again, where, I mean, he never won a white game. And I think he also almost never came close. The only white game where he had something was game 9, and this is one game out of 8. Yeah, total. And in the other games, he had absolutely zilch. In some cases, he was even worse after the opening. And this is, I think, very surprising, or was very surprising to me. The Carlsen said in the press conference that they focused a lot on the black side of preparation to not get into trouble. I think they did this very well. Carlsen never had any opening issues with black. If you exclude that game 9 was, but this was the game also right after the loss, so there was certainly also some influence there. I think for a challenger has to show a little bit more than just, and I mean there's really, with all due respect, just tenacious defense. You have to be a bit more aggressive, a bit more attacking, and a bit more willing to win games. And I mean, he certainly was willing to win games, but I mean, only trying to win games from the defense is a strategy that should normally not work. I mean, there is this famous saying that, yeah, attack wins games and defense wins championships. But of course, you have to be a good defender, but you have to try to, you need to outplay the other guy once in a while. And Karjakin did not do that in this match. I mean, he won game 8 after Carlsen overpressed, and where he used his chances very well. Karjakin did, not taking away anything from him. But if you look at like phases of games where one side was outplaying the other, Carlsen has like, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 of those, and Karjakin has 1 or 2. So I think even the score was very, very narrow, but I think if you just look at the games, I think Carlsen is the very much deserved winner of this event. Yeah, I think I'm closing this coverage now. Thanks a lot for watching this video and also the other videos. I also have to say, and I will make a separate video on that, but I received quite some donations over the last couple of weeks when I covered the World Championship match. I'm very, very grateful for that, and I think it's very much connected to the coverage of the match. So thanks a lot for all those donations. Okay, I'll be back with the regular daily videos. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.